Dear learners, have you been watching the videos I made on tenses? Have you been enjoying those videos? In fact, these are the examples of present perfect continuous tense. And today I am going to be having a discussion on that particular tense. Welcome to Starting with Kollan sir, and without wasting a single second, let's get into it. Dear learners, before I start discussing what present perfect continuous tense is all about, I would just like to tell you that it's a special tense in terms of time. You know why? It is because it connects or links three basic tenses, namely past, present and future. That is why we can say it's a combination or amalgamation of the three basic tenses. I'll make it clear right away. Let's understand what this tense particularly deals with. Well, present perfect continuous tense refers to an action that started in the past, is still going on at present, and might continue in future as well. So this tense is a kind of combination, and this is the only tense out of the 12 tenses we have in English. This is the tense that talks about past, present and future. I'll make each and every doubt clear by looking at the examples I have written for you. But before that, we must have a close look, an attentive look at the form which is of paramount importance. This is what I always tell you. At first, the subject must be there, definitely in the case of assertive sentences, because in the case of interrogative sentences, we might have a little deviation. Well, in the case of assertive sentences, we must have the subject at first, and after that, we must have either has or have. And after that, we must have been. And next, we must have the first form of the verb with ing. And at last, we might have other words as well. Now, let's have a look at the examples I have written for you. The first one goes, I have been reading in this school for the last 4 years. Remember, here the action of reading started 4 years back, that is in the past. It could have been 1 day back, 1 year back, or 2 years back, or 3 years back, or 10 years back. It doesn't matter. It could be even a minute back. It could be even a second back. And these things, all of them are considered to be in the past tenses. Okay. So here the action of reading started 4 years back, and we can say that I am still reading in that school. That means that is what is happening at present, and there is a possibility that the action of reading might continue in some future time. It might be 1 day, 1 year, 2 years, or even more than that. Or it could be just a single more day. All these things are considered to be future. Think of what I have just told you. Okay. Now we're going to have a look at the next example written over here. She has been teaching English grammar since 7 a.m. We have the same thing. We have the same kind of action. Here it is teaching, and the action of teaching started in the past, that is 7 a.m. It could be a minute back, I have already told you, and the action of teaching grammar or English grammar is still going on right now, and there is a possibility that she might teach even for some future time. That means she might teach for the next 10 minutes, for the next half an hour, or for the next 1 hour, or it might be more than that. It doesn't matter at all. What I am pointing at is that the action of teaching might continue in some future time as well. So that is why we can say that this tense is a kind of combination of all the three basic tenses. Now, dear learners, out of the discussion I have just had, I can tell you that this particular tense refers to an action that started in the past and it is still going on right now and it might continue in future. Now I have something to tell you, that this past action might refer to the fact that the action in the past started just a minute back, just a second back, just a few years back, just many years back, or it could be ages back. In fact, what I'm trying to tell you is that there is no limit to the time in the past. And the same is the case with future as well. There is no limit to the time. The action that we might talk about might continue for a certain period of time in future, like it might be 10 minutes, it might be 1 minute, it might be a second, it might be 10 years, or it might be ages in the future. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next crucial thing. In fact, in the competitive examinations, this question is asked. And we are going to focus on where we are supposed to use since and where we are supposed to use for. Just be patient to listen to what I say and be patient to just see or watch what I tell you, okay, or what I show you. Since refers to a point of time. That means since refers to some specific time, some definite time, some certain time, whereas for refers to a period of time. That means since is used for a point of time, for some specific time, and for is not used just for that. Okay, now we are going to have a comparative study and we are going to clear our doubts if we have any, okay, regarding these two words. The first one, for 2 hours. Here the time, or we can say here the hours are not specific. Which 2 hours? We don't know. But here the hour has been specified. Here the hour is definite. Since 7 o'clock. We can take an example and say she has been reading for the last 2 hours. But which 2 hours? We don't know. But if we say she has been reading since 7 o'clock, the time has been specified. We can definitely say that this is the point of time. Okay, now we are going to move on to the next example we have here. For 2 days. If we say she has been suffering from fever for the last 2 days, but we don't know which 2 days she has been talking about. But if we say she is suffering from fever since Monday, and here the day has been specific. Here the day is not specific, but here it is. Okay, now we are going to move on to the next example. For 2 months. She has been learning English for the last 2 months. Which 2 months? We don't know. She has been learning spoken English since January. Here the month is not specific, but here it is. I think you have understood the difference between these two words and you can use them in your writing or you can use them while you speak. Okay. For 2 years, the same thing. She has been learning English for the last 2 years or for 2 years. But which 2 years? We don't know. But if we say she has been learning English since 2018. Here the year has been specific. Now I'm going to tell you a piece of information. Sometimes in both the cases we can use from, F-R-O-M. Now we are going to look at some constructions of sentences following this particular tense. Well, she has been teaching English for the last 10 years. This is an affirmative sentence. We are just looking at the sentences from the perspective of construction. And if we turn the affirmative sentence into a negative one, what we are supposed to do? We are supposed to use the word not just after the auxiliary verb. Remember or notice that there are two auxiliary verbs. Sometimes the students get confused and they use not after the word been, but actually it is not so. Whenever we have more than one auxiliary verb in a sentence, we should take the first auxiliary verb into consideration. Okay, after the first auxiliary verb, we are supposed to use the word not, and that makes your negative sentence. Okay, she has not been teaching English for the last 10 years, and that has made your negative sentence. Or we can say she hasn't been teaching English for the last 10 years. Now, so that you don't have any confusion, I have written the format. At first, the subject should be there, and after that, there could be has or have, and then we would have the word not, and after that, been would be there, and after that, all the words that are there should be followed. Okay, now we're gonna have a look at the yes/no question I have made out of the first sentence. Let's have a look. Has she been teaching English for the last 10 years? This is an example of a yes/no question. I can tell you that you can go to the description box for all the links of the videos on tenses I made. Okay, you can watch those videos as well, and I have discussed constructions of sentences in those videos as well. Has she, here the first auxiliary verb should be put before the subject. Here she is the subject and I have put the word has or the auxiliary verb before the subject, and that has made my yes/no question. Okay, now let's have a look at the next form of sentence. Has she not or hasn't she been teaching English for the last 10 years? This is a negative question. This is a yes/no question with a negative word. That means it's a negative interrogative question. Has she not? At first the auxiliary verb should be there, and after that we must use the subject, and then we can have the word not. Or we can together write this. We can connect these two words. We can write them all together, and that would be hasn't, and this is specially used in spoken English. Hasn't she been teaching English for the last 10 years? Well, the next question with a WH word. How many years has she been teaching English for? Remember, the for should be there. The preposition should not be left out. Okay, I'm not talking about that right now. How many years has she been teaching English? The same thing, just have a look at this one. Has she been teaching English? It's an example of a yes/no question, and we need to put the WH word, and there are some words as well, the WH word just in front of the yes/no question, but we must leave out the answer part. Last 10 years or the last 10 years. Okay, this part, as this is the answer to the WH question, this part should be left out. Okay, now we have another question made just following this particular sentence. What has she been teaching for the last 10 years? The answer to this question would be English. Okay, and here the same format is followed. Just have a close look at that. You can practice different sentences using this particular pattern. I think your English will get better. Now, just for your convenience, or I can say just for your understanding this quite well, I have written just the format, and if you follow this format, I think there will be no confusion. All the doubts will be cleared. She has, and whatever is there should remain the same, or we can say they would remain unchanged. Okay, all the words that are there would remain unchanged. She has, and if we turn this positive sentence into a negative one, we have to just say she has not, or we have to just write she has not or she hasn't, and that makes your negative sentence. If you want to make a yes no question out of that, this is a very nice thing. I think this will help you. Has she, and all the words should be there, and that makes your positive yes no question. And if you want to make a negative yes no question or a negative interrogative question, you have to say has she not or hasn't she, and after that all the words would remain unchanged. And in the case of a WH question, you need to put the WH word, and after that has she. It might be have if it is there in the sentence. Thanks for watching.